This is a huge week for markets overall. This is one of those crazy weeks where it's going to get wild. If we got back above this and held above 40,000, then I think you have to say the next run is probably in place for 100,000.
In today's video, Chief Market Strategist of InTheMoneyStocks.com Gareth Soloway tells us all about his latest analysis of the charts as well as his predictions and price targets for Bitcoin. Soloway shares his opinion regarding high inflation rates, the stock market, the crypto market, and the Fed. Before listening to him, please ensure to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel.
Right now, we have a lot of news. We have a lot of things going on in the economy. We have the Fed meeting coming up in a couple of days. Gareth, enlighten us with that.
Yeah, so this is a huge week for markets overall, right? Like you said, Fed meeting on Wednesday. Thursday, we have Apple, Google, and Amazon all reporting earnings after the bell. And then Friday, we have the jobs data. So, I mean, this is one of those crazy weeks where it's going to get wild. The Fed decision is, needless to say, the most important one. They're going to raise by 25 basis points. That's not in question. It's all about what the commentary is going forward.
Is it priced in? Do you think it's going to be a sell the news event? What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, it's tricky to know at this point because we still have another day and a half to go until we get that. We're selling off today, which is kind of a positive, actually. The more you sell off, the more likely the markets will snap back. So people essentially are taking profits right now. We've had a big run up in the equity markets, in the stock market, in crypto. And people are saying, wait, listen, I'm up X amount. Why don't I take some off the table? Because you have all these unforeseen possible negatives out there. For instance, Jerome Powell saying something that the market doesn't recognize. So I think the big question is watch what happens into Wednesday. If we rally back up, then I'd be bearish going into this. I'm looking at the charts on some of these stocks. And again, I can bring up a couple of them here, but let me show my chart here. But Apple reports obviously earnings. And to me, one of the negatives here is that Apple's had such a tremendous run, right? I mean, you've gone from $124 all the way up to a high on Friday of 147. We're backing off just a little, and look at where we are. We're kind of right at this crux, this cross section of major resistance. So for me, I'm bearish going into Apple earnings. I think everyone assumes they're going to have this great quarter. It's going to be just normal. And honestly, between inflation, a slowing economy, issues in China, for me, I would expect them to maybe sell off. Maybe Apple stock sells off on earnings. I would probably go towards something like this, where you take the same trend line here and stretch it up to this pivot low. So you're kind of looking at like 127, 128, somewhere in that vicinity. I don't think it'll drop that much on earnings. I mean, that would be a really horrendous miss if it did. But I do ultimately expect Apple to eventually trade down, probably in the $80 range before this bear market cycle is done.
Got you. So let's look at Bitcoin real quick. What are you looking at, Gareth?
Yeah, so what you do have, and you're correct, you have this kind of sideways. Now the one negative here is that we had this attempted breakout which occurred on a Sunday. Now, for everyone watching, never trust a crypto move that occurs on a weekend because you don't have volume there. You can see exactly what happened. Bitcoin had this nice run up, touched kind of 24,000. And then today markets are open, markets are selling, institutional volumes in there, whale volume, and it comes right back in. So I agree. I think your next stop is right here. You have this pivot low right here and this pivot high. So that's right around 25,000. So that would be, if we continue up, that would be your resistance point. I ultimately am still in the camp that the lows are not in on the crypto market. So I would be kind of in the camp of saying that at some point we will see a big rollover again. For me, there are a couple of things that I'm looking at. I would be looking at this area right here. So this is kind of a major, remember, this was your pivot low of 2021 before the second move up. So that's going to be really a lot of resistance. You have this level that we broke down on. So if we got back above this and held above 40,000, then I think you have to say the next run is probably in place for 100,000. And I think 100,000 to me is your next spot. And one of the things I'm looking at here is this trend line right here, right? So wherever this trend line is when Bitcoin gets up there, that to me would be the next resistance of the cycle, right? Connecting these high pivots here. Just to go over kind of how I've positioned myself at this point is I still have a position long in Bitcoin, right? So the target on that is still 25,000 or so, this resistance level. I do have a position on Polkadot as well, DOT-USD. here. And again, same kind of thing. If it gets up into this range here or this area here, I'm going to unload that. Now, I do have short signals out there. One of them is Solana. Solana, I'm in from about $25.50 on the short side. That's in the money a little bit here. And there's just so many resistance levels on Solana right up here. Avalanche I put out as a sell short yesterday. And again, we're in the money slightly here off of this resistance area here. And then also Ethereum. I actually think that Ethereum very likely topped out when it topped this pivot here. And again, we're short on Ethereum, slightly in the money as well. Big question I have, right, is and this is what everyone's been asking, is this a new bullish move in the market? Is there a new bull market on the S&P 500? I personally don't think so. And then the reason why it's not proven yet, and remember, everything we do is chart related, is that so far you have the high, lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high. We haven't made a higher high yet. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a beautiful bear market rally, but it hasn't taken out this pivot high here to tell us that it's anything other than that. And maybe it will on the Fed. We don't know. Maybe later this week it will. Or does it start to roll over? And I eventually think the S&P is coming down to this level down here, and eventually the long-term trend down here. And remember, markets work, and there's some sort of synergy. There's kind of like an equilibrium where when we're above trend for so long, and you can see that above trend, as long as the Fed was printing money, we were always above trend. It makes sense in the very least we have to come back to trend, right? And the trend is right here.
So what about gold, though? What's your gold narrative right now?
Yeah, so gold to me is due for a pullback. I mean, this was just a tremendous move to the upside. I am not short gold because I love it in the midterm, and maybe short term it's overdone, might pull back here or here, but I'll be buying on dips. So basically, if I'm lucky enough to get back to around 1800 or 18 and a quarter, I will be loading up again. I did take my profits on my swing gold just because it got so extended. But again, these are shorter term trades where I'll just buy on a pullback then. I have Bitcoin slated to bottom this year. Now, again, is that going to be May or June or where not? I mean, we'll find out. Maybe it already bottomed already for all we know. But ultimately, I agree that it is a buy the dip year. It's finally at levels where anything, to be honest, below 20,000 looks interesting. And I think, again, the biggest thing I would say is don't chase it up here. You have limited upside to 25, maybe 30. Just look for pullback. So you don't want to FOMO in. FOMO is like the worst thing. Think about people that FOMO'd in above 60,000 back in 2021. They all got screwed. So think about it. Just buy it on dips, buy on pullbacks, find your technical levels. Like for me on Bitcoin, a few technical levels to watch would be this. This was the FTX high just before the collapse. We can clearly see that right here, it hit, pulled back, and then broke. So this will be support. Another big level for support would be right in here as well. You have this pivot high and these lows. So you have a few levels where if you're saying, okay, I want to buy, but I don't want to pay up here, look for here, and then if it does get all the way down here, you have double bottom.
What do you think? I don't know if you've looked into this at all, or if you have an opinion on this, but what do you think of the XRP court, well, the Ripple court case? Do you think that's going to be concluded this year, or do you think it can actually take more time, more than expected by most?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I got to imagine that it's wrapped up this year. I mean, it's getting so ridiculous at this point. I don't know if the judge is waiting for, more guidance from the regulators. I'm not really sure what the deal is here, but to be honest, it's getting a little ridiculous. I do think it gets wrapped up this year.
Do you think XRP will win or lose?
Oh, man, I'm not sure, to be honest. The one thing I will say is that it's hard to imagine that the banks would sit by and allow XRP to kind of supplant their system that they have in place. To me, that's the biggest hurdle. It's not, I mean, who knows what the judge says? It's more a matter of, do the big boys want to give up that revenue stream that they have from transferring money? So, I mean, if for some reason the judge does rule in the favor of XRP, you'll see an immediate massive reaction. And I do think that reaction could easily retest this $2 level up here. I mean, just that alone. I mean, now again, does it pull back off of that? Maybe, but you'll just have that immediate pop in it to the upside, and it could be huge.